caregiving has become one of the most significant changes of the 21st century, and especially long-term caregiving. Whether the person lives with you, near you, or hundreds of miles away, caregiving can have its rewards. But caregiving is also filled with many challenges and tough decisions. You will now hear a few caregivers briefly share their caregiving story. As you watch, listen closely for the challenges they face and what each caregiver is doing to take care of himself or herself.
I've been caring for my mother for the last several years. She has had dementia. Actually, we saw the dementia coming on as early as about 8 years ago and became aware of that. I came up with the idea of taking all the old photographs of the family, the most cherished photos of my father and mother and us as children and them on their wedding day, and really great photos that were actually all around their home where they used to live. And I've got about 4 of them hanging in her room. And I taped those up to the wall, and they have been a really wonderful thing for her. We've talked about them when I speak with her on the phone, and I can sort of bring her spirits up, and it brings my spirits up when we discuss those things. She came to the understanding back a few years ago that she wasn't able to any longer care for her finances and pay bills and manage all of that, even though that was actually her life. She was a vice president of finance for a corporation in New York City back in her middle age and younger years. Incredibly capable, and managed all of that and managed all of the family finances. So for her to have handed that over to me was a really monumental step. I have experienced a great deal of what can I do? Am I doing enough? I travel there as much as I can, and maintaining my work and being able to maintain my family and my home here in Portland, clear across the country. Also raising our own son. We have a child. People have children. And are at the same time caring for their elders. First person I go to, to confide in about what I'm going through, what I've been going through, and has been my wife. And spoken with her a lot through the years, and she's been my, in a lot of ways, my support. And then I realized also that that's a heavy burden. It really became a heavy burden on her as I was distressed, particularly at times that were very distressing. A year and a half ago, I started seeing a therapist, and that actually has been tremendously helpful. Just someone to go and step aside from my life, my home, go talk with every couple of weeks, every month or so. And this has been the main subject, my mother, my care for her, my family relationships, my larger family relationships with my brother and all. That's been the main subject. I think of myself maybe as not a very, very typical man in that I cry. It just comes out. So, I feel it well up in me. Sometimes it's talking to my mom, and afterwards, of going through a conversation on the phone, I hang up and I'm just overwhelmed. Times I go and visit her, I'm overwhelmed by emotion a great deal of the time. Getting out, doing daily walks, I know that I feel better. It gives me time to reflect. The physical action, the physical activity is important and makes me feel better. This was a fear that I had much of my older years of my life, seeing my parents aging, that myself and my brother, my family wouldn't know how to handle providing for them, and helping my parents in their oldest years. And how to help my mother out during this time of actually losing her cognitive abilities. I guess I feel something positive in myself that, okay, as difficult as it has been, as sometimes I fall apart, that I've pushed through it. I pushed through some of the barriers and the hurdles. I'm grateful that I do have her, and that I, still have her voice, her loving care that I can give to her, that she can give back. I'm grateful for having that right now.
So I care for our son, Tyler, and he is now 15. He has a diagnosis of autism and bipolar disorder and central auditory processing disorder and a language delay. He was diagnosed with autism at the age of 1.5. Things have changed. Things just look different. When he was young, maybe about 2 or 3, he would hit his head on concrete 20 times a day. Now, as a 15-year-old, he will slam me up against the wall when he's frustrated. Over the years, it's been directed towards me and towards Dad and towards sister. And so that moves it to a different level. So it's been a bit of a challenge. Now he's on 8 different meds, and people freak out with how many meds he's on. But if that's what is keeping him functioning and safe for the most part, then that's what we have to do. And as a caregiver, we have to make those decisions. And I always say to myself that I make the best decisions that I can at that moment. It's taken a real toll on me personally. I have really had a hard time being his caregiver. I've been a stay-at-home mom with him for 15 years. He always would take the bus to school and they would drop him off in front of the house. And I always was like, okay, the bus is coming in 30 minutes. I need to lie down for 30 minutes and rest before the bus comes because I have to be on. Like, I can't be doing anything else when Tyler comes home. It's exhausting. I've spent 15 years caring for somebody that I finally have had to admit abuses me. When you finally are at that point where you're able to identify what's really going on, it's healing, but it's also really hard. I remember one time when I was kind of at the end of my rope, and another time, I'm at the end of my rope a lot of times, but there was this one time that I told my husband Marcus, I said, I need to just go away for one night. I don't care where it is, I just need to get away. So that's what I did. I packed up my stuff, I packed up my journal and some music that I usually listen to, and I went 20 minutes from home, and it was the best thing that I did because I was able to sit in quiet and not do anything. And so I look back at that time and I just laugh at myself that I went away 20 minutes away from home by myself in a hotel room, sitting in quiet. But at that moment, that's what I needed, and that's okay. And that was healing for me. For the first time in my adult life, I got a job. I've been fortunate enough to not have to work, and so now I'm a caregiver and I have a part-time job. And it's something for me. And everybody's like, are you sure? Like, you can do this? And are you sure that this is gonna be good for you? And all these questions, and I'm like, no, this is good. And I put makeup on, and I put on nice clothes, and I put on jewelry, and I get to interact with adults, and it's so amazing. And yet, at the same time, I'm still a caregiver, and I still take care of Tyler. Yes, it looks different, but it's good.
My caregiving started about a year ago, and at that time I was caring for my mother long distance, who is 98 years old and lives in Seattle. and my husband, who had just been diagnosed with a terminal lung disease. My husband wasn't showing real serious signs yet of his disease. We had been told that people with that particular disease usually last from 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, he went in 15 months. I was more concerned a year ago with my mom, who had stayed in her home of over 70 years and was refusing any suggestion of downsizing or thinking about moving into something smaller and more manageable. And so my sister and I, my sister lives in Seattle, we knew that we had to wait for an incident that would force the issue. It happened last October, a month after my husband died. My mom was found on the floor in her kitchen, dazed and confused. A neighbor had found her, and we were able to get her into the hospital and was told by the team there that she could no longer live alone. And so, unfortunately, that's what it took to get her to move. Partnering with my sister, that has not been without problems. She has her way of managing things and I have mine. And again, not being face to face with each other, it's like a dance. You know, you kind of let her lead for a while and then you have to lead for a while. We're hoping that at some point in time we can focus on that, on our relationship, because hopefully we'll outlive my mom and we can get back to just being sisters again. I'm dealing with the finances of all of that, and so I have a file cabinet set up for my mom. And so I feel responsible for keeping accurate records of things that are sold or repairs that are done and where the money is going, where the checks are being made out to. For me personally, it's been a lot dealing with the loss of my husband and my mom. That has been tough. I feel like I haven't finished grieving for my husband because my mother's situation has come up, so I need to deal with that now. But I have friends. I have a strong faith community. I meditate. I have grandchildren that live in the area, and that kind of keeps me afloat. I've gone to different support groups, community resources that have been really, really helpful. You know, when your parents are in their 90s and close to 100, that means that their children are in their 70s and 80s, so there are a lot of my friends that are going through the same thing. And so we compare notes, and we talk about frustrations and anger and not knowing what to do and feeling like you're living somebody else's life or helping them to live their life, and you kind of like to live your own life, but you can't just yet. And so talking about that helps a lot. So yeah, I'm physically doing okay, and emotionally it kind of comes and goes. I know when I'm stressed when I can't sleep. I have trouble sleeping at night. I am pre-diabetic and I have to really watch what I eat, and I'm a snacker and I often will eat things I shouldn't eat. So I have to watch that. I have a lot of things in place for myself. I meditate daily in the morning, and that's just a real important thing for me to start the day off in that frame of mind, and it carries me throughout the day. I exercise daily for about an hour a day. Well, I should say Monday through Friday, about an hour a day. I have a walking partner. So I'm stronger in my faith now than I thought I was, and I'm stronger physically than I thought I was, and I'm more organized than I thought I was. And I'm a little bit better at finances than I thought I was. So yeah, I'm going to survive this. It's just a process, and one day at a time. I'm going to get through this.
My husband, Gordon, came down with, well, he's had dementia for a while, but we didn't have it diagnosed till about 4.5 years ago. I was a little bit afraid to get it diagnosed. I was pretty sure that's what he had because his uncle had it, and he said, if that ever happens to me, I don't want to live. So I was afraid of what he might do if he found out he had Alzheimer's or dementia. So he used to get up at different times at night And in the beginning, he thought he could do different things, like maybe cook something or get into different things. He's always been somebody who does a lot of little jobs and stuff around the house, so he was always trying to do something. One time he tried to put a napkin in the toaster. Another time he turned the gas on the stove. And so before going to bed every night, I would take all the knobs off the stove, and with my toaster and the coffee pot, I would unplug them, and I'd put one of those extra little plugs that you get on the appliances on them, because the more challenge you give them to do something, the harder it is for them to do it. I like to sew. I do a lot of sewing, and so I was concerned that he would come in and do something to my sewing machines, because he told me one time, oh, I could make that work better. And I said, that's okay. So I ended up putting a lock and key on the sewing room door so he couldn't get in there. I have several activities that I like to do, and I've cut down on half of them, but I didn't cut down on all of them because I knew it was important to keep those going. When I'm stressed, sometimes I will sit down and read a book. I'll go into my sewing room and sew if it's convenient at that time. I go water walking in the morning, and I had somebody come in and watch him while I water walked, which was very helpful to my health and to my stress. Well, I will say that there were some entertaining times. One day we had, he'd taken the recycling out, and I made a cake, and so I asked him if he'd take the box and the cake and put it in that gray box or container that he just put outside in the recycling container. And when I went to the mailbox later on, I opened it up, and there's the cake mix, or the cake mix box, and so I got a laugh because I thought, I wonder what the mailman thought about getting an empty box in the mailbox. But, so, you have to laugh at some of the things that happen. It's really hard to say everything that you've learned, because I think as you learn it, you don't realize what you learn. It's just something you do on a daily basis. But I'm in the process of moving right now, which has kept me going too, without having to think so much about putting him in a home. I went round and round and round about placing him. It's really hard to put him in a home, but it just was getting to the point I couldn't. Wasn't so much I couldn't do it anymore, is that he was not letting me help him do it anymore. There were just some things he just didn't want me to help him. And I would say, you do feel guilty. You feel like there was something that maybe more that you could have done, but I think by keeping busy, doing the move, making sure you take time out for your friends, do something you haven't done in a long time, I think all of those are helpful. There are times that you're going to get angry and frustrated. There are times that you're going to laugh. There are times that you're going to cry. I think you have to be patient, which is really, really hard, and realize it's not the person that they were before. Taking care of yourself too, giving yourself time for yourself. I think these are all important things to do.
The caregivers in the film expressed many difficult emotions: fear, grief, frustration, anger, guilt, and love. All of these feelings are very real, but a very important part of self-care is dealing well with those emotions that challenge us. It's critical as a caregiver to find self-care tools that work well for you. Neglecting any aspect of your health and well-being has long-range consequences, not only for you, the caregiver, but also for the person who needs your care. It's often helpful to discover that other people are walking a similar path. It doesn't erase the burden or the problems we experience. However, it can help us to feel that we are not alone.